Welcome to the first episode of Automate. Automate is pretty much a one-stop shop for all home automation and other techie goods. Anything that I find or anything that I think is really cool, I'm going to be popping up on here. Today's video is purely going to be about installing Home Assistant. Now, Home Assistant is a brilliant application. You can install it on so many different devices, cross-platform, for example, or whatever you like to call it. Now, essentially, you're going to need a few pieces of kit for this. The pieces of kit that you're going to need are a micro SD converter. So you can take your little micro SD, your SanDisk SD, and place it inside this. Really nice and simple. Like that. And then you can plug that into your machine. You're going to need a Raspberry Pi of some sort with a case. Well, preferably with a case. You don't have to have a case if you don't want a case. But I would recommend a case. This one you'll probably notice has got a fan. Now, I'll do some reviews on these bad boys as well, but to be honest with you, the fan in this, I wasn't too impressed. It's quite dead. Now, the last thing that you're going to need is a computer to do all the work on, basically. I'm going to take you through a step-by-step guide now of how to install Hassbian, which is an all-in-one image of Home Assistant. So it's really simple. It should take about 20 minutes, something along those lines. And before you know it, you've got one place to manage all of your home automation. Anyway, I hope you enjoy the video. Let's get on with it. Okay, so now the prerequisites are out the way. Let's open Chrome and get started. Type install Hassbian and hit enter. Click the top search result and head straight over to the install Hassbian page. This is without a doubt the easiest way to install Home Assistant on a Raspberry Pi. Now we're going to click the download Hassbian image link, which takes us to the Hassbian repository on GitHub, and select the zip link to download it. Happy days, that's downloaded, so let's hit the back button on the browser to continue with the next step. The next step is to download Etcher. This application is going to flash the image to your SD card. Etcher is a cross-platform application, but as I'm running Windows, I'm going to click the download for Windows x64. This shouldn't take more than a couple of seconds because it's quite a small file. Now that's downloaded, let's head back to the instruction page, and we're going to launch the executable to install Etcher. Click I agree and select any prompts that pop up and let the install do its magic. Once Etcher pops up, click select image and then select the previously downloaded zip file. At this point, you want to pop your USB with your micro SD inside into the computer. Etcher should automatically pick up the drive, so now you're free to click flash and sit back and watch. You may receive a Windows security prompt at this point, so if you do, just click yes to continue. I'll skip through this portion to speed it up for you. Okay, brilliant. That's complete. You may see this Microsoft warning about formatting the drive. Don't worry about that. Just close that one and close down Etcher, and we're ready to go for the next step. Okay, so at this point it's very important that you've made sure that your Raspberry Pi is connected via Ethernet to your home network. Don't worry about the wireless network settings situation there. Purely we haven't been able to jump onto the Raspberry Pi yet, so we can't configure it. So now let's take the micro SD out of the USB drive and let's put it into the Raspberry Pi. Once we've done that, we're going to take our power cable and place that into the Raspberry Pi as well, and we're going to have to wait about 5 minutes and then we'll be able to access the GUI. So in order to access the GUI, we're going to have to get the IP address of the Raspberry Pi. You can use the DNS name, but I've seen this fail before. So if you head over to your router configuration page, as I'm showing in the video at the moment, you should be able to find all devices that are actually connected to your router. So here we can see the Hassbian dev. Yours will be named Hassbian. And to the right of that, we can actually see the IP address. That's the puppy that we want. So just note that down and head over to your Google Chrome browser. Now what you'll notice is if you type that IP address into the address bar and hit enter, it won't actually load a page. So what you need to do is pop a colon on the end and put a port number in, and that port number is 8123, and then hit enter. So there we go. There's Home Assistant running nice and beautifully in the web browser. You'll notice there's some self-discovered components there. That is a setting in the configuration.yaml file. If you haven't heard that phrase yet, you're going to hear it an awful lot more. Basically, you can see here that there's some lights that have been picked up, and also my Plex media server, my TV, and my Pioneer receiver, which is great. Now, before we take a look at editing that configuration.yaml file and changing a couple of settings, there's a couple of things that we need to install on the Raspberry Pi itself. So we'll head back over and use an application called Putty to do so. Open a new tab on Chrome and type in Putty. I'm going to hit the top link, and this is going to take us to putty.org. If you click the download Putty here link, and what you'll see is a couple of MSI files, Microsoft installer files, and you're going to want to use the 64-bit. So if you download that one and install it, very simple install, next, finish. So once you've installed Putty, you're going to want to head back over and grab that IP address if you didn't note it down from earlier, and then we can launch it. Where you see the host name or IP address, type the IP address into that box, make sure the port is 22. Now I would recommend saving these details, so in saved sessions, pop Hassbian in, and click save. Once you've done that, you can double click Hassbian or single click and click open. At this point, a security alert is going to pop up. If you just double check the IP address up in the top left hand corner of the Putty window, just to make sure it's correct. Once you're happy, hit yes. You're now going to need a login name and password. So if we head back over to the installing Hassbian web page and documentation, we can get the default password and username from there. So our default username is Pi and the password is Raspberry. So let's head back over to Putty and type those credentials in. Bear in mind that when you're typing in the password, you're not going to see any characters. So now we've logged onto the Pi with the terminal session, we're going to change the Pi user account password. This is important so that not everybody knows it. Please, when you're typing in your password or when you're thinking of one, think of one that you're not going to forget. To do this, we're going to type sudo pass wd pi and hit enter. Now type in your password once and then hit enter and a second time to confirm. And that's it. The password's been successfully updated. Now we're going to configure the time zone for the Raspberry Pi. To do this, we're going to use an inbuilt utility called the raspi-config. To launch this utility, just type sudo raspi-config and hit enter. Now we're going to arrow down to the localization options and hit enter. Then we're going to go to change time zone. And now I'm going to select Europe.
and scroll down and find little Jersey and hit enter. The next thing we're going to do is expand the file system on the Raspberry Pi. So to do this, we're going to want to arrow down to advanced options. We're going to want to hit expand file system and hit OK. With the basic setup complete, we can now jump out of this Raspberry config and go down to finish and hit yes when it asks to reboot. You'll now lose connection to the Raspberry Pi as it is restarting. Don't worry about that, we can reconnect in about 15 seconds. To do this, simply click the top left hand corner of the putty terminal window and go down to restart session. Log in with the Pi username and your previously updated password. And that's it, we've now modified the time zone on the Raspberry Pi and we've also expanded the file system. So next we'll take a look at the configuration.yaml file. To make this easier for ourselves, we're going to install a couple of pieces of software. So the first thing we want to do is type sudo apt-get update and hit enter. This is going to update the package lists from the repositories, which will allow us to download the newest version of an application called Samba. Samba allows us to map a network drive to the Raspberry Pi to easily edit our configuration.yaml file with the application of our choosing, for example, Notepad++. To install Samba, we're going to type sudo apt-get install Samba and hit enter. At this point it'll ask you if you'd like to continue. Just type Y and hit enter. I'll speed up this portion of the video and I'll see you in a second. Great, now Samba is installed, we're going to edit the configuration file for that. So we're going to type sudo space nano space /etc /samba smb.conf. Now we're in the configuration file, we're going to hold ctrl-k to delete every line that's in there. If you look in the description of this video, you'll find the configuration for this file. Just copy and paste it directly in. It's under Samba Configuration. To paste into putty, all you have to do is left click the screen once and then right click and it will paste what you've copied. The configuration that you see here will share out the home directory of the Pi user and also the home directory of the homeassistant installation. This has been created specifically for Hassbian and only this type of install. Now to save this, we're going to press Ctrl-X on the keyboard and then we're going to type Y and hit enter. Now we need to set up the password for the Pi user to connect. So we're going to type sudo space smb passwd space -a pi and hit enter. To keep things simple, now type in the same password that you used for the Pi account originally and then retype it to confirm, but this is up to you. Finally, all you should need to do is restart the service. So to do this, just type sudo space service space smbd space restart and hit enter. Okay, great. Now that's all set up, we can go ahead and connect to the Pi through Windows Explorer. Okay, so nice and simple, click up in the address bar, type // and Hassbian and hit enter. Now into the credentials we set up earlier, so pi and the password you set up for SMB. Also, I'd tick the remember my credentials box at this point, just for future use. And voila, we're in. Here's the Home Assistant folder that we shared out. And here's the Pi user folder also. Personally, to keep things simple, I like to add the Home Assistant folder to the quick access location. So if you just right click the Hassbian node on the left hand side there and select pin to quick access, voila, there it is, nice and simple. This means that anytime you want to access your Home Assistant configuration files, all you have to do is open File Explorer and click Hassbian on the left hand side. So the reason we're in here is because I want to give you guys a quick overview of the configuration.yaml file, and we can see some basics of editing it. So double click it and let's take our first look. This is the configuration.yaml file. This is really where all your time is going to be spent at first. But what I'd like to do with this, instead of running through every single component, is give you a quick demonstration of how to edit it. If you remember previously, we briefly discussed the auto discover option that is enabled by default in Home Assistant. What we'll do now is we'll disable that and then re-enable it, just to show you how to save your modifications. First thing we'll do is pop a hash in front of discovery and hit save. When you use a hash in YAML files, it blocks out that piece of code. Now there's a couple of ways to ensure that Home Assistant takes your new modifications. The main way to do this is to restart the main Home Assistant service. And there are two ways, as I said, of doing this. One is through the GUI, and the other is directly through the putty console or terminal. If you click the configuration node on the side of the GUI and head over to General, you have three sections. One, to check the config. When you've modified the config, hit that button. Two, reloading specific configuration portions. And three, server management. This is the point at where we'll restart the service from. Just to quickly prove to you, we'll head back over to the GUI, and you can see at the moment the discovery options are enabled. What we're going to do next is restart the service through the GUI. So we're going to hit configuration and go over to general, and then we're going to scroll down and hit restart under server management. But as YAML can be pernickety to say the least, the first thing you should always do is use that check config button. So we're going to hit that one first. So now we can see the configuration we set previously is valid. Let's go ahead and restart the service through the GUI. You'll notice a failed to call service Home Assistant restart pop up in the bottom left hand corner of the screen. Don't worry about that, that just means that we've restarted the service correctly. Now wait 30 seconds and click the overview button. And voila, there we go. No more self-discovery enabled, and the Home Assistant GUI looks pretty empty, to be honest with you. So the final thing we're going to do now is restart the service using the terminal or putty. There's a great documentation page that you'll find online, so if you head over to Google and type in common tasks Hassbian and then click the link right at the top, you'll find some really useful information to carry out quick tasks on Home Assistant that you'll do a lot. The portion that we're interested in is the start, stop, restart Home Assistant portion. We'll select and copy that command out of the window, then head back over to putty and paste in the command. We're going to slightly modify this command though, so we'll go back to the stop, delete that, and change it to restart. Now before we hit enter, we're going to head back over to Notepad++, delete the hash from in front of discovery and save the document. Head back over to putty and then hit enter. Now we've actioned the restart, we'll head over to Google Chrome again, and we'll notice that the connection is lost, reconnecting. This means that we've successfully restarted the Home Assistant service. Let's quickly check the service is back up by changing restart to status and then hitting enter, and we can see it's now running, which is great. And finally we'll head back over to Chrome, and there we go. The auto discovery has been re-enabled again. You can see my Big Bravia Pioneer receiver, my Plex media server, and a few of my custom HA bridge lights that I've created have been automatically discovered by Home Assistant. And that's it. Home Assistant set up, ready to go, ready to take your configuration. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, leave some comments, let me know what problems you have, how easy it was, and hey ho, thank you very much guys.